In our last set of fictional texts for the AI, Robots and AI unit, you are reading a story from the post-war era, Kurt Vonnegut's Epcach, and you are also reading Lucy Tan's The Last Curiosity, which is our contemporary fiction preview for this theme. So Kurt Vonnegut is my favorite writer of all time. If you've taken a course with me prior to this, I know a lot of people do, then you already know that. Shout out First Edition Slaughterhouse 5 right there. But Kurt Vonnegut is very prolific. He is weird and poignant and suffered a lot of trauma in his life. He was a prisoner of war in one of the greatest sort of casualty events during World War II, and suffered a lot in his early years, and he became a very sort of dark, comedic cynic with also this odd sense of hope about literature that is just so fantastic about his work. Epcach is his story about a machine named Epcach, and our capacity to or the machine capacity or artificial capacity for emotion. So what we sort of arrive at with these texts, you have seen in the previous texts as well, but I want to talk about those things a little bit more. In addition to all of the sort of existential questions that robots and AI present in science fiction, there's also this very human sense of relationship that comes from it. So the idea of what it means to connect and have relationships, meaningful relationships in a technologically driven world. Think about the conversations that we have about that today, about how phones and social media have influenced the way we build relationships. That is an idea to be thinking about here, what sort of relationships that we can have with those things. Also, the concept of robots or AI being able to fulfill emotional needs. And where the line is between healthy and unhealthy in those things. And again, that's a question that we're dealing with today. But it also brings us back to that question of what is it that makes us human, and arguably emotion is one of those things that still define the difference between artificial and human intelligence, but by the same token, that artificial intelligence can absolutely perform emotion, and if it reached a point at which it could feel emotion, how would we know? So that's one of those questions that we're dealing with, as well as the idea that our robots, AI, can transcend our own biological limitations, that they can exist beyond what we are. Now, Epcach is an example from 1950, and I find Epcach fascinating in the context of generative AI and LLMs today, like ChatGPT. It almost can. That's just something to think about while you're reading the story is how that relates to the technology we have today. Really, throughout all of these stories that are written in the 50s, 60s, you see a alarming prediction for the future. I mean, this is a period of time where color TV was a new technology, and looking into the future, they're sort of hearkening to a lot of things that actually look startlingly like our own reality. Now, in the case of our contemporary text, Lucy Tan's The Last Curiosity, that text was written in 2021, and it explores coming back to where we started with the last question. This story is called The Last Curiosity. So there are actually no humans in this story. This is a post-human world. And so we are looking at the story through the lens of what has transcended us, of that legacy that is there after we are gone, in a very sort of interesting way. And as you're reading that story, I want you to, again, come back to these fundamental questions about what it is that makes us human and how society might evolve, or how societies might evolve, or how this technology might evolve when it becomes no longer there to serve a purpose. Because at the end of the day, robots and artificial intelligence are created to serve us, to serve a purpose to us. And at a certain point when we are no longer there, well, what does its purpose become? These two stories, also, I am not going to offer spoilers. They both deal with mortality, um, with the idea of dying, and that's something to also think about. In coming back to those themes of science fiction that deals with what separates us from machine, a lot of those things are very abstract, very difficult to unpack. But the one thing that we can say without doubt separates us from artificial intelligence is our own mortality. By the same token, I do just want to leave you with a piece of the conversation about where this is headed. The idea of it being one or the other, of there just being humans and robots, is the focus of our text this week. But today, another aspect of science fiction that a lot of people are writing about is the blending of the two, is what happens when we sort of merge with the singularity, or when we merge with artificial technology. And, some estimates suggest that we will be able to implant certain AI technologies into certain parts of our body to enhance certain things within the next, couple of decades, which is crazy to think about. But given how much the world today calls back to these stories from the post-war era, it's an interesting thing to think about what stories 60, 70, 80 years from now, how much of our own predictions today will look like in the future.